Hello and welcome to Timing is Everything, a show of Care Dimensions, formerly Hospice of the North Shore in Greater Boston. I'm Mary Crow. I'm the Educational Specialist at Care Dimensions. Today's show is on music therapy and creative arts therapy. Our guest today is Lisa Kinvey, Creative Arts Therapist at Care Dimensions. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Mary.
Thanks for coming on.
You know what? Thanks for bringing me here. It's fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Care Dimensions.
Sure. I am absolutely blessed and lucky to be the one to provide creative arts therapy and music therapy full-time at Care Dimensions. So I see people wherever I find them, wherever our patients are, whether they're at the Kaplan Family Hospice House or they're at home, wherever home is for them, whether it's in a nursing home, an assisted living facility, an apartment, a house, wherever they are. So I see people individually on an appointment basis, basically, and I go to the Kaplan and see whoever is available there to be seen. And it's a joy. It's a joy. I get to serve in whatever way is appropriate for my patient at the time.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Well, you know, tell us about music therapy and creative arts therapy, because a lot of people have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Creative arts therapies or expressive therapies is kind of an umbrella term, and it encompasses a lot of different modalities. So basically, what the creative arts therapies as a whole do is combine the fields of psychotherapy with whatever creative art modality that we happen to specialize in. So for example, my primary modality is music, so I'm a music therapist, and I am trained both in psychotherapy and in using music as a form of communication within the therapeutic relationship. So I know how to use music. It's primarily live, but also sometimes it's about recorded music, using maybe music and imagery, using focused listening, music as a support, all the different ways that you can bring music in as a tool for connection, between me and the person I'm working with, their family member, their caregiver, whoever's in the picture there, and using music as a way also for them to bridge, to make bridges with their own life, with their own history. We all have a personal relationship with music that we've built over our lifetime. And, you know, in the same way that, a physician knows how to use the tools of medicine in a particular way to help patients achieve whatever it is that their goal is. So if it's comfort or if it's healing or whatever, depending on the physician and the situation, we know how to use the creative arts therapies and creativity in general to kind of as tools to help bridge that. And we all use medicine on our own individually. We know how to take an Advil when we have a headache or we're sore or whatever, but a physician has a lot more tools and availability, you know, with the expertise. In the same way, we all know how to use music to help us energize, to help us relax, to help us whatever. And a music therapist is then particularly trained to significantly deepen that relationship and be able to use it in the service of whatever goal the person is looking, whatever goal is appropriate for them at the time. So by the same token, a visual arts therapist would be using more of the visual arts, whether that's creating using light and form, whether it's in clay or paint or you know, looking at beautiful artwork, or whether it's in stained glass, who knows what, some kind of a visual art medium. Dance movement therapists, by the same token, use physical movement in the body and our physical expressions to make those connections and as a form of communication. Drama therapists, psychodrama therapists might use reenactment and role play and that kind of thing in the service of that, again, that therapeutic connection and the growth, whatever that is, or the goal, whatever that may be in the moment.
So there's really a broad spectrum.
Yeah. So the creative arts therapies are kind of the broader idea, and then there are specific modalities. I got my dual master's at Lesley University in creative arts therapies and mental health counseling with a specialty in music therapy. And at Lesley, it's a beautiful thing because you get to cross-train in the other modalities. So I specialized in music therapy, but I also got training in visual arts therapies and movement, dance movement therapy a little bit. I'm not a dance movement therapist, but I do have some training in terms of how to use movement and the physical body to affect change or growth or comfort or whatever it is that we're after. So that's what I primarily use music in hospice. It's sound is the first sense that we have in the womb, and research shows that it's also the last sense that we have as we're transitioning out of this life. And so music is a very appropriate medium, I think, for hospice. For some people, the visual arts are more appropriate, and so I do work with folks with visual arts too, sort of the creative arts therapies. Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of neat, again, because, again, you're really reaching people as individuals,
yeah,
in terms of who they're at.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of a neat piece, too, to be able to kind of look at this broad spectrum.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, tell us a little bit about, again, so you talked about your work in hospice,
yeah,
and how do you use music therapy and creative arts therapies for people with advanced illness and end of life?
Right, yeah. So I really completely cater what I'm going to do according to the situation that I walk into. So if I have a patient, for example, who is let's say I have a patient who's feeling sad and lonely, who's feeling a lot of grief because of the losses that they've had in their life so far. And I think sometimes when you face advanced illness, if you're in your 80s, in your 90s, you've already experienced a tremendous amount of loss, and it can build up. And then as you progress in your illness, there's the loss of independence. There's all sorts of losses that go with that, and those can feel pretty heavy at times. So I might come in and connect with a person, and if assuming that they're still someone who's able to speak. Sometimes my patients that I work with are not able to speak anymore, but let's say this is a person who can still speak. I might use the connection of music and talking about, well, what have you, what did you love to listen to? Did you used to go dancing? I'm trying to find the connection that they had with music in their life. So let's say they were somebody, no, I never went dancing, but oh, I sang in the church choir. Right, and just bringing back those memories of singing in the church choir. Oh, what did that bring to you? And tell me about that, and what are some of your favorite hymns? And then I take out my guitar. Would you like to? Oh, I can't sing anymore, but I'd love to listen. I said, well, you feel free, and I'll start the hymn. And before you know it, somebody's singing along, even if it's quiet, or they're mouthing the words, or they're closing their eyes and listening and imagining, being back in the church choir. And really, I think one of the amazing functions of music, and particularly song, song with lyrics, is that it's there as a medium to carry our ideas and our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions that we can't actually just speak.
Yeah, yeah.
So songs are there. You take a song like "How Great Thou Art," right? There's a way that as humans in our social lives, we can't just say the words to "How Great Thou Art" unless it's part of sort of a prayer, right? But we can say, "Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder," right? It's a whole different thing. It gives us the medium to carry that belief, and it connects us back with what we believe, with the beauty of it, with the humanity of it, with all those things that help us feel whole and human again.
Sure.
And
you're able to get to a much deeper level,
right?
And the thing that comes to mind too when you're talking about this is, and it's so moving to me to listen to you say this, it's about the story. It's about allowing people to tell their story at such a deep level.
Yeah.
And how important is that for people with advanced illness and at end of life?
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly it, Mary. I think that the soundtracks of our lives really carry our story as well. Where were you? What is your song with your husband?
Yeah.
You know, what is the song that when your oldest son got married and you had that mother-daughter dance or that mother-son dance at the wedding, what was that song?
Yeah.
You know, and taking people back to those moments and reconnecting us. Music can connect us not only with each other in the room and not only with ourselves and our own history, really it can. It also connects us with people who aren't here anymore.
Sure.
You know, that can connect me with my late partner who isn't alive anymore, but who I remember as clear as a bell the day we got married. And our song was, you know, I'll be loving you always, right? And, you know, we can sing a song like that together and it can bring all of those beautiful memories right to the present day. And it doesn't erase the loss, but what it does is expand it a little bit. Like our lives then in those moments include not only the loss, but the beauty that was there and that we always carry.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Well, and that's one thing that we always have, right? Are the memories and the things that we cherish in that way.
Yeah.
And how wonderful to be able to really get in touch and to bring those up.
Yeah.
We're going to take a brief break right now, but we're going to come back and talk more about this wonderful subject.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Care Dimensions, formerly Hospice of the North Shore in Greater Boston, is different in that we do more than just hospice.
It's just incredible, the services they provide when people need it the most.
So being able to offer more individualized care helps people feel more cared for.
Because it's about the patient's quality of life.
I don't think there's any place else in the Boston area like Care Dimensions.
At Care Dimensions, we'll take care of your family like you're a part of ours. Visit us at caredimensions.org.
We're talking about music therapy and creative arts therapy. Lisa, wow, what you're talking about, it hits me so deeply. And again, I'm so happy that you're here today.
Me too.
So, you know, really interested in hearing more about it. And also, you know, I'd love to hear too, could you give us some examples of your use of music therapy and creative arts therapy in people that you've worked with?
Sure, yeah. I was thinking about a couple of stories. I work a lot with people who have various levels of dementia, but oftentimes folks who have fairly advanced dementia going on. And I have lots of amazing, wonderful stories from that work. It's like some of my favorite work in the world to do. And I had a patient once who she would talk very, very nervously and kind of a word salad, right? But there was always some kind of urgency to it, and you couldn't just start a song in the middle of her rant. She would just ignore you totally. But if she said something that then sort of reminded me, you know, of a song, she would say, "Well, can you show? Can you show? Can you show?" And I would say, "Can I?" Show me the way to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. And she would join right in with me, right? And as soon as I started that, she would start singing with me, and then we were there. Wow. She would sing the whole rest of the song. And I think that when she was in her anxious place and not quite making sense, there was part of her that knew she wasn't making sense, and it was frustrating her. Right? Yeah. And she knew nobody was responding to what she was trying to say because she wasn't saying it. Yeah. I think it's a huge human need to have extended conversation like you and I are having now, to connect over time, to interact over time. And when you have a short-term memory loss, you're essentially losing the ability to connect over time because you forget what just happened. But here comes music, and it gives us a structure that can carry us through time. You know where you are in the song. So she can have that experience of interacting with another human being and being connected and knowing where she is over time. I'm at the beginning of the song, I'm in the middle, I know what's coming next. We can sing that song as many times as we want. And she knows where she is, and she's so happy in those moments. And the thing with dementia is that while we forget the content of what just happened, our limbic system, our emotional center, is not affected by dementia, by Alzheimer's. And so the emotions that we have continue, although we forget why we have them.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can have a music therapy session. If I can get somebody into a positive, happy place, that could continue for the rest of the day. They won't have a clue that I was there, which is fine with me.
Right.
But they'll feel lighter, and they'll feel
Absolutely.
that the continuation of that connection. It's not always familiar songs that I work with. I do work with clinical improvisation as well. I was thinking about a story about a patient that I saw recently who was sitting in a wheelchair in the hallway of her nursing facility, and she was very self-involved with a repetitive phrase, really, but that was nonsensical, that she was just saying over and over. And by the time I got there, it was about 11:30, 11, and she had been saying this for several hours. And she had a strong grip on a cup in her hand, and she was saying something like sari 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 sa 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 sari sari sari. And I checked with the nursing staff, and they said, we don't know, she's been doing that forever, we can't interrupt it. People had tried. I had had success with a hymn like In the Garden with her before. I tried that. She didn't even know I was there. So I sat down next to her, and I really just tuned into her. And what is she, not what is she saying the words, but what is the feeling behind it? There was an urgency. There was something very important to her about what she was saying. It was sort of something that she needed to get across. It had that kind of anxious urgency to it. So musically, I listened to the rhythm of it and the energy of it and the melody of it, and I created an improvised melody and rhythm that held that for her. My hope in the moment, my goal, was just to help her feel accompanied and feel understood, like there was somebody there with her. Just that she felt accompanied, and that maybe my reach goal was that maybe she could set that down for just a minute. Maybe she could let me hold it, because I tell you, if you and I tried to say something like that for hours and hours on end, we would be exhausted.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
So she's going sare 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 sare, and I'm matching her with the guitar, right? And I just started, I'm vocalizing without words as well, because I don't want to bring words in. I don't know what she's saying, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I'm going da 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 da, and she stops and she looks at me.
Wow.
And she's like, and I, and she takes this beautiful inhale. And to me, like, I got goosebumps. I want to cry just talking about it. That was my moment. It's like, oh my God, look at that, look at that. So I just kept going, like, I can hold this for a while.
Sure.
You know? And she smiles. You know, so for whatever reason, I got it. What's what she told me in that moment. You know, you understood me, and you know, some other things happened, and some folks from the facility wanted to trade out her morning cup for her afternoon. She got all anxious again, and she started again, but it didn't last too long, because I came back in with the music. I was trying to help her let go of the cup, because she just had this grip on it. So I started singing, "Let it go, Mary, Mary, let it go." You know, and so eventually she opened her hand, got a new cup. They did their job. She had her nutrition. We kept going for probably an hour, so that she really, at the end of that hour, then I transitioned into some hymns, and she was able to go to sleep.
Oh, isn't that nice?
So you could call that, you know, I put somebody to sleep, but but there's some depth to it.
Well, you also released her from that anxiety, the cycle of her anxiety, and I think you brought up such a critical point is, you know, for people who have cognitive impairment, you know, to evoke positive feeling, and certainly you got to a much deeper level that other staff certainly weren't able to do.
Yeah, it's just not their skill set, and you know, there's a lot of things that they can do that I can't do, and I'm just I'm really lucky that I get to do this. You know?
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, so give us some other examples.
Sure. I had a veteran that I worked with who was really, really, really upset. He had a lot of PTSD going on. He had been in some pretty serious combat situations in World War II and had a lot of PTSD that was coming up. And he'd had a beautiful, vivid dream that he died, and he was so happy. But then he woke up, and he was really, really upset. He was done. He wanted it to be over, but his body was still here. And he had kind of really started to shut down, and he was not interacting with anybody anymore. And he'd been kind of a pretty social guy, and people were worried about him. And different people have tried to make contact with him, and he was just something, he was just done. He felt like when he tried to interact with people, he got angry, and then his PTSD would come, and he was just hiding under the covers. And so I got called in, and I thought, I'll try. I hadn't met the guy before, and so I just sat by his bed. I just went in and sat by his bedside, and I didn't say anything. I put my guitar next to me, and after 15 minutes or so, he was just looking at me, like, aren't you going to go away if I don't say, And he eventually said, "Do you know Johnny Cash?" I said, "Yeah." And he started talking about how there was this song that kept running through his head, this Johnny Cash song about a journey. And I said, "Oh, would you sing it for me? Are you a singer? Do you like to sing?" And he said, he started sitting up, and I used to fancy myself a singer. I think I should have done something with my voice, and I never did, And I said, "Well, you still could." And he's like, "No, it's too late." Blah, 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 blah. I said, "Well, let's go back to, we talked about the Johnny Cash song, and I said, there's nothing that any of us can do about the fact that you had this dream and that you're still here. We can't do anything about that. What we can do is try and help support you during the time that you still have here." And I said, here's the thing. Your kids don't have a recording, I bet, of you singing. Do they have a recording of you singing? He said, no, I never recorded anything. I said, well, how about we do that? And so, long story a little bit shorter, I was able to bring in, I have a great digital recorder, and so I got to record him singing this Johnny Cash song that he loved so much. And it's a beautiful song called The Far Side Banks of Jordan, it's about, Johnny recorded it with June as his last album before the both of them passed, actually. And he got to make that recording, and actually just as we were starting to record it, all of his kids who had come down from Maine walked in the room, got to watch him hold his microphone and record the song, and then they have that, that recording of him singing for the rest of their lives, and it gave him something to offer back.
Wow.
I think that gives us a lot of meaning. And
Absolutely.
the nature of my work is to help people find meaning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and again, a couple things come up. You're talking about creating legacies, and that life review piece and all of that, which sometimes it's harder to get at, to sit and to have, so tell me about, but you're able to reach it differently.
Yeah.
That it, and I think it's just a much more, in some ways, more powerful, but much less threatening way for people to reach that. And
it is.
I mean, what a wonderful thing you did for both, again, because the impact that it has on the family as well.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah, that's what they said. And this is a family who calls me, about once a year or sends me a little email. "Thank you again so much. We still have Dad's voice. We didn't even have a recording of him talking, And you can look at a picture of somebody after they've passed, and it's lovely, but it's kind of the shell of them. The voice is the inside.
Sure.
And we know that from people saving voicemail. They'll save anything with somebody's voice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's available to us now with digital audio. It's free. I do a lot of voice recording for people.
Oh, isn't that
people
wonderful?
Recording stories that they're reading for grandchildren who aren't born yet. I have a guy who's recorded he had an annual tradition of reading a certain story on Christmas Eve every year. And so he recorded that for his grandchildren who hadn't even been conceived yet, but he was going to get to meet. And he was holding some sadness around that. And I said, you know, you can record that. We can do that. And so we bought him a beautiful, you know, book. He wrote in it, you know, to my grandchildren and recorded this him reading it. You can make as many copies as you want as
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
It's so important to know that one's life had meaning and to be able to leave something behind for those that we love.
Yeah, and that it's you know, it's not our image that's going to last through the millennia, but these little things, they ripple out and they have an effect. Yeah.
So why do you think that music therapy and creative arts therapies are so effective when caring for people with advanced illness and at end of life?
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting combination of factors. I think that there's something about the beauty and the humanness of music, in particular, and of creative arts therapies, of all sorts of creative arts. There's something about the beauty and the inherent humanity in those that connects us, and that when we share that with someone, it softens and opens us. I had a patient say to me recently, it took her actually a long time even just to get the sentence out, but I played a lot with her, and she said, the part of me that loves music doesn't have cancer. The part of me that loves music isn't sick at all.
Wow.
And it's sort of that. And so there's a way that if I'm sharing these moments with somebody, I'm bringing something that I'm making as beautiful as I can. So I'm taking the original song, I'm mixing it with my love of being with people.
Yeah.
I love this work, I love the music, I love being with people. And I'm responding to whatever they're giving me in the moment. The rhythm of their breath, their energy, their affect, their emotion, their situation, mixing all of that together and giving back a gift to them that is something of beauty, I hope. That opens and softens people, and it brings them a feeling of safety. And in that feeling of safety, they can open and share more deeply and acknowledge more deeply what's going on for them.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that acknowledgement of themselves, what's real right now. The pain of what's real and the joy of what's real, and it's all together. It's not one or the other. And I think that music can and creative arts can help build a container that will hold that in some kind of a human, beautiful, messy stew that we can then live in. This brings us a feeling of acceptance of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And when it's the difference between what's actually going on and what we can accept that our suffering lies. So if we can bring that closer together, then there's actually less suffering. And I actually think that that's kind of the mechanism of how what I do works.
It's wonderful. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here
You're
today with
welcome.
us.
Thanks for having me.
I wish this show could go on for more hours because I could sit and talk with you about this.
It's great
Would love to
stuff.
have you back at some point.
I'd love to.
You know, again, we're going to have to sign off for now, but thank you again for joining us on Timing is Everything. My name is Mary Crow, Education Specialist, Lisa Kinvey, Creative Arts Therapist at Care Dimensions, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next show.